We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to This Song Is Yours, the podcast where we dive deep into the art of songwriting and chat with some of the most exciting artists in the world and explore the stories behind their songs. I'm your host, Simon Fink, and thank you for joining us. Our guest this week on the podcast, we've got 2 episodes this week celebrating 5 years of the pod. Our first guest is much-loved Australian pop star, Ruel. Known for his blend of pop, soul and R&B, Ruel has been a fixture across Australian airwaves since he was just 14 years old and has gone on to find success on a global scale. Building on the momentum of his debut record Fourth Wall in 2023 and a world tour that followed, he's now returning later this week with his highly anticipated sophomore album, Kicking My Feet. It's a sonically adventurous record, one that sees Ruel collaborating with a range of songwriters across the globe while also embracing a new level of honesty and vulnerability within his own songwriting. In today's episode, we are stoked to be chatting with Ruel about Kicking My Feet and this exciting new chapter in his career. We talk about the importance of being more open within songwriting and how that works when collaborating with others. We discuss his move overseas to Los Angeles, whether locations impact creativity and how it works, and we get him to also break down a song that his mum originally thought was written for her. We also chat about his recent performances with an orchestra and what fans might expect from his upcoming live shows. Now, we want to say a massive thank you to Finn for his help with today's episode and remind everyone that the brand new Ruel record, Kicking My Feet, is coming out this Friday. You can find links within today's show notes on where you can pre-order the album, stream his music, and follow him across all of his socials. While you are in the show notes, please make sure you're subscribed to This Song Is Yours and go follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and wherever you get your good podcast from. We'd love it if you did. It really does help us out and it ensures that you stay up to date with new episodes, guests, and everything else that we've got going on. Now let's get into it. Here is our conversation with Ruel. Please welcome to This Song Is Yours, Ruel. Hello, sir. How are we?
I'm very good. Thanks for having me on.
My absolute pleasure. Super exciting to have you on this week as we're celebrating a sophomore record from yourself. It is Kicking My Feet. It's out this week when people are going to be listening to this episode. But firstly, congratulations on this record. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I'm very excited to get it out. Obviously, release week is because, lots of emotions. I'm definitely shitting myself a little bit, but I think for the most part, I've finished this record almost 4 months ago. So at this point, the songs, I've had a little detox of the album because I had to listen to it so much with, all the mixing and mastering like that. When you listen to the songs that much, you definitely lose a bit of love for them and they start becoming sounds. But I think after this detox, when it comes out and I'm going to have to listen to them again and play them, I'm excited for that because the love kind of starts to come back again when you see the reaction to it.
100%. I feel that the context of the song almost changes a little bit when you know that it's so close to just being out of your control almost, that it's just out to the people.
Yeah, exactly. You start to rethink every lyric production thing. It's like, yeah, it really starts to happen. But I'm more excited than anything.
That's super exciting to hear from a listener and a fan's perspective. Has this album, obviously the songs are different, but aside from the obvious, is there something that feels different this time around? Obviously that first one was the debut. There's lots that goes into the debut, and this time around being the sophomore, being that there's only been a few years since, is there anything that's kind of glaringly different from this approach or this kind of process of recording, writing and now putting it out?
Absolutely, yeah. It was very different, like process wise, and I think I kind of went into it with, I think the main thing, like the main positive thing was that I had a lot more certainty and intention with every kind of every step of making this album. I think maybe that comes from just getting older or just, having done it before. But I'd never felt that sense of certainty before. I think I'd kind of been wallowing in uncertainty my whole career and kind of not knowing the artist who I want to be, or I go into sessions and kind of close my eyes and just hope something good happens. And now I could kind of go into each bit of writing and be like, all right, this is what I want to do. This is the artist I want to be. This is the sort of song I want to make today. And I think that helped as well, because I worked with so many different producers and writers on this album to make it feel cohesive. It was a lot more on me to kind of have that confidence in each thing and steer the sessions in a certain way that made it feel like it could, fit on the album. I think that was the main difference, because I didn't have like one executive producer on this album.
When that kind of occurs, do you feel, is there like a different sense of pressure then almost? Obviously, as you said, it's sticking with a certain group of collaborators and songwriters to make these songs cohesive, but also still very much you. But then is there a different pressure when you're almost doing that yourself?
Definitely. Yeah, it was. I definitely had to just have that responsibility, and I definitely wanted it. I kind of asked for it, and I think that pressure helped, and it made me write so many bloody songs. Like I was like almost 200 songs that at the end of the past 2 years to pick from. So that also, surely 10 of them are going to feel cohesive.
I did read somewhere that the number was around 200, and I imagine that task of kind of whittling down a number of these tracks and songs that are very close to you and dear to you, and that some might be super catchy or some might be super personal and honest, but then don't quite fit as a cohesive piece as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Was that an interesting process to kind of make to I guess the track listing aspect of it? Was that an interesting process to work out what does fit as a track list?
The way I kind of approached it made it a lot easier by kind of taking every 10 songs that I wrote, I would kind of put aside and put that in on the whiteboard and kind of feel like, okay, this is a non-negotiable. Like this has to be on the album. Like this is what I want the album to sound like. And once I had more and more songs like that, it shaped up, what I wanted everything to sound like, until I had about 20 that I felt like were songs that I just needed to have out at some point. And then I could pick 10 from that and really cut the fat and just be like, let's just have, because I really wanted to do a 10-song album. Like 10-song album is like I think the correct amount of songs that should be on the album, on any album. I think it, and I mean, it's annoying because it says 11, but there's just one outro, so it doesn't count. But I had to, I really wanted to stick with my guns on that, and that definitely made it easier.
That's awesome. This album is fantastic. We've been lucky enough to have a listen to it before it has come out this week. So thank you very much for that opportunity.
Of course. Thanks for listening.
Of course. It sonically and lyrically does kind of sound like an evolution for yourself. And I know that I think it was maybe spoken about a little in press, but also having a listen to these songs, you can tell that there's a lot more honesty kind of coming from yourself from the songwriter's perspective. And with that in mind, I'm curious whether that was an intention that you set out to do before even beginning the second record, or whether it was something that you felt that you had to do as you kind of went along and found the songs were pouring out of you and the other songwriters, that it was something that made those songs connect or resonate more.
It was kind of interesting going into this one. I knew I wanted to be more vulnerable and wanted to, talk more honestly. Like that's always what I want to do for each album. But I kind of realized that the only thing that I hadn't been super honest or vulnerable about or in my music, or what I hadn't written about, was kind of talking about love in a positive way. It was way harder to write about, and, to write a love song, really. I don't think I'd ever really done it successfully. And I never thought it was worth writing about unless it had some sort of negative twist or some trauma behind it, or talking about some sort of, woe is me, situation. And I kind of had to break through that for this album to truly feel like I was giving myself up, to the music and putting the art first. Like I had to kind of not think about the cringe factor. I was just like, how can I write? I feel like, I kind of learned how to write overly dramatic, emotional, and, songs that still make you feel something about love, which, was where Kicking My Feet was kind of born, was kind of leaning into the cringiness of it all.
I think, not to quote the 1975, I think it is, but sincerity is actually quite scary to do, yes. And it's tricky to do.
I've been quoting that this whole press tour.
It is. It's one of those things that I think that you can write an angry song because it's easy to be angry, and then you can write a lovey-dovey song that might not necessarily cheesy, but having it come across without, while being sincere, it's a really tough thing, and I think you've done it quite well across this record. I think that there was one song I was hoping to talk about, and while we are talking about vulnerability in songwriting, it only kind of makes sense. Yeah. My favourite track on the record, was Even Angels Won't. I thought that was a really gorgeous record. It's a little bit later on in the track listing.
Yeah.
And kind of talks about, I want to say, this dedication to someone through, thick and thin, wondering whether you might be able to share where that song was born from.
Of course. Yeah. This one I wrote with Dan Wilson, Andrew Jackson. This was like the first day I met both of these guys. That we wrote this one, which has kind of happened a few times over the record. It was like I worked with him like so many times after that. But yeah, it was the first day, and I went into it just a little gloomy, and I wanted to write something that was about something positive that sounded really sad. And because I've been doing the opposite, I've been trying to write positive songs, like happy sounding songs that had a lyrical twist in it. But yeah, I went into it like with a pretty clear concept of unconditional love, and not necessarily about anything in general, anyone in general. I was just like had these lyrics like in the chorus, and then Dan, who's just a complete poet, and so his lyrics are so timeless, and I feel like he brings a sort of different perspective in the room. As like a dude in his mid 60s, it's writing with him, and he's kind of writing as if he was writing a love song to his wife or whatever. Like it's funny, like using all the different ages and perspectives like to get different sounding lyrics. But anyway, the song pretty much kind of fell out of us in like an hour or two, and it was really felt special. And then after I finished it, I kind of had the first demo. I remember going home and kind of playing the demo to like my parents and my family back in Australia. I was just home for a few days, and I played it to my mom, and my mom like looked at me and was like, "This one's about me, right?" Like, as she's like tearing up, and I'm like, yeah, sure, for sure, Mom. Yeah, this is definitely like totally supposed to be about you. Anyway, and then she was like, yeah, I thought so. And I was like, okay. So I kind of had to go along with that narrative now. It's like, all right. But then I listened back to it, and I realized like, wow, this really kind of only can be about a mom or a mother. Like it doesn't feel romantic in a in that sort of, it doesn't feel like a relationship in a romantic way. And looking back at it, it does just feel like someone who will stick by you through thick and thin, and will just always be there and be a constant figure and be that kind of rock in your life that you can do, the safety you have around that. So yeah, I think that's kind of created a whole nother meaning of the song just by her thinking it was about her. And
I kind of love that though, like the classic songwriting. What is it? It's not a trope, but like classic songwriting usually has this thing where it feels like it can appeal to the listener because it relates to their situation or their kind of their own persona. And I think the fact that you've been able to write a song that different people can find it and be like, yeah, that applies to me, is like, it's definitely a good thing that it's open for interpretation. And in the loveliest way, I hope your mum doesn't listen to this podcast, just so there's no illusion shattered. She knows. Okay.
Yeah. I had to tell her that. I was like, hey, this wasn't actually initially about you. And she was like, oh, it's all good.
We, if you hadn't picked up on it already, we're primarily like a songwriting podcast.
Yeah.
Curious, and maybe while we're talking about parents, did your parents have much to do with your introduction to music and introduction to songwriting?
Yeah, definitely. I think my dad is just a massive music fan. Like, he never played or sung or wrote anything. Like, he just was a massive music nerd growing up, and would kind of not, I guess, force, but definitely recommend a lot of like interesting music to us as kids, and me and my sisters, which to the most part we would completely dismiss, and we would cool and cringy and old for listening to now. Like I realized like he was putting us onto like James Blake and Kendrick Lamar like when we were like 7 and 8, and we were like, what is this old music, like ew, like we want to listen to Taylor Swift and Ed Sheeran. And yeah, it's funny, like I look back and I'm like, wow, like he was really trying to put us on like some new like it's not like he was trying to put us on like Robbie Williams, like it's like it was a different type of parental I don't know, musical guidance. So I look back and I definitely thank him a lot, because a lot of those artists that he played for us as kids like are my favorite artists now. Yeah, I remember when I started writing and started singing, like he writes ads for a living, like he is a creative, like, but he's the creative for the devil. No, I'm kidding. But he is like a very creative guy, and like he definitely helped me when I was 12 or something. When I first started writing lyrics, I'd bring them to him, and he would kind of give me ideas and stuff like that. We'd kind of bounce off. Like that was just like a hobby that I'd have with him. And then yeah, and then I just started kind of making covers. And then when I got a manager or whatever through a manager finding a video of me or whatever. I started kind of talking to him a bit more, and then he helped. And then he kind of was like, as soon as I started going to LA, he was like, okay, like you're off. You don't need me anymore. Like he definitely kind of let me grow in that way. But I definitely owe a lot to my dad and my mom, because my mom was the best part of that, because she did not care about music at all. So she was just like a constant positive, like, you're doing great, sweetie. And the back of it all. So it was always very supportive.
I absolutely love that. I think that sometimes it is helpful having one parent or one party that's really involved and one that has no skin in the game, almost, to give you the two different perspectives so you can have perspective on it.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. I know that there's not a lot of live dates on the calendar at the moment. We've got a live show at Harvest Rock Festival here in Adelaide in a few weeks. We're really excited to kind of catch you at Harvest Rock.
Yeah.
And then I know that there's a show on the Sydney Opera House steps in December, I believe. Curious for yourself, Ruel, is there a track off this record you're excited to bring into that live space and kind of see how it translates into the live arena?
Oh, yeah. God, so many. I mean, the whole album is like, they're all made to be played live, but maybe like there's a song called Not What's Going On that I can't wait to play that live. Like that feels like it'll just be so much fun because I love the songs where I can literally just run around and dance in quotation marks, like not like it's like those are the ones that make me want to keep coming back to the stage, and like what I feel like the fans kind of bounce off the most. So I think Not What's Going On is an interesting one. I think that might be my favorite to play live.
That's very exciting to hear. Might be an obvious question. Can Australian fans expect some more tour dates maybe in the new year in support of the record?
Absolutely, of course. Everything's kind of being locked in as we speak. So dates coming very soon for next year. Trying to get everywhere I can.
Very exciting to hear. We'll make sure we share those on the podcast socials when they are announced. I know that I think it was earlier this year you had an experience at the Sydney Town Hall with the Red Bull Symphonic. Is that the right? Name, right? What was that process like? Because I imagine it's quite interesting and quite a unique experience to have most of your discography translated into a much more different sounding and differently arranged kind of context. And the footage, we'll make sure we also link the video in the show notes. But it looks like it was an incredible gig. What was it kind of like from your perspective as the artist?
Oh, it was incredible. It was pure like magic for me. Like to have that amount of energy and emotion behind you, like it's wild. It felt like I was floating the whole gig. Like it's like, it was like, I remember the first rehearsal as well, just the same thing. You just kind of, I've never heard any of my music translated that way, and hearing it for the first time live is just like, again, it kind of you get a new lease of like love and life for these older songs. But I also got to play some of I got to play I Can Die Now as well, like a couple months before it came out, with the full string section, which was super fun too. So I got to, tease a bit of the new album. It was mainly just, having that sort of new life for these older songs and playing in Sydney, like in that venue, it was all pretty magical. Yeah.
Is there still, obviously it's a silly question to ask, so it might be a bit obvious. I imagine that even though you're now based in LA, there is still that magic kind of connection to being able to be performing in your hometown and see people and play in like majestic venues such as the Town Hall.
Yeah, honestly, it always is the most nervous I get before any show is always got to be the hometown show. It's like when you look over to a section and you see like cousins, friends, your girlfriend's parents, like, you know, all those things. It's like, oh God, like this is not, I've always dissociated. That's when you can't dissociate at all. Like you really just have to take that in. But yeah, it was also the most fun because it does feel like a big celebration each time. Yeah, feels like my birthday.
Absolutely love that. As mentioned, you are in LA now based, I believe. Do you find that creating music is kind of differently there? And I know it might be a bit of a on the nose question that there are more industry people in LA, there's more songwriters based there. But from your perspective, do you find that you create differently when you're there?
Well, I don't know. It's weird. I've always written in LA. I feel like from like the very start of my career, like most of my like the first EPs that I put out, and and most of the last album, I would go over for trips and just be like a couple months at a time. So I've definitely like, but I have written obviously in Australia and or other places, and it does feel like there's a certain thing in the air there where it's like that kind of hustly sort of rat race thing. Like when it comes to songwriters, like everybody wants to just write the best song, especially now, like when there's less and less of a blueprint or, an algorithm or solution, like, a equation for every song with TikTok and everything that's kind of, creating and shaping the music space. It is like a best song wins sort of game out there right now, which is like cooler than ever. And I kind of love getting into that. As soon as when I moved, first of all, like when I moved over there and started writing, it was less pressure to write, something great in like a few weeks or a few months. Like when I was previously just coming out for trips, like I knew that I had far more time to think about it. But also, I kind of fell into the, getting into the hustle and just like working as much as possible and kind of becoming a bit of a workaholic, which I am not at all. Like I feel like I'm in Australia. Like every time I've come back or lived here, I've never been someone who like can't get off the tools. I definitely was good at, taking time off. But as soon as I get to LA, it completely switches. I have to be working all the time. Otherwise I feel like a waste of space.
I think that's completely fair. I know obviously not comparing one's own artistry yourself to our podcast. We were lucky enough to go to LA earlier this year for the podcast and do some work there with artists, and it's almost even in the air. It's different. There is like it's palpable that you want to be able to keep pushing things and trying things and working, as you said.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's
it's in that with every industry, I think, over there for sure.
100%. As you mentioned, I think it was Dan Wilson. You said that worked with was it Dan Wilson? Sorry,
on which song?
Oh no, I was just making sure I had Dan's last name right.
Dan Wilson. Yeah.
I know. So as you said, Dan Wilson. I know Joel Little as well. Kenny Beats, Chelsea Lena, and M Phases. Some different collaborators across this record. For you, as we discussed, when trying to make something that is fun, when having that little bit of competition, how do you pick a good collaborator and someone that you think that you'll work with well?
It's just, honestly, it's just trial and error, and like having like a couple days with someone to kind of get the vibe is always better than just kind of going in for one and done. But I don't know. This album was so many different people, and I kind of got pretty lucky for the most part. But I also feel like it's a lot of like, when I'm picking people to write with, I'm definitely kind of looking at their personality and seeing the sort of person they would be in the studio. Not necessarily the music they make, like, with Kenny, for example, like, he's obviously more known for, his hip hop space. And obviously he's been branching out a lot more. He's been doing stuff with Idols and now Geese. And, his stuff with like Omar and Dom Fike and all that is a bit more in my world. But you know, I had no idea how that was going to go. Like it seemed like he had a very specific style kind of going into it. But when we kind of met and started writing, it was just like the chemistry in the studio was just there to, it was obvious. And then we just, you know, had so many sessions after that, like off just that one day that kind of felt, even if we didn't really write much on the first day, like it was just a good time. And usually if you're having a good time with someone, you're going to eventually get a good song.
And we've been discussing it a lot recently in terms of that if you can find someone that you've got that level of trust and comfort with, that it obviously makes being vulnerable and showing your art to someone a lot easier, not to sound too cliche. Ruel, we usually kind of wrap things up asking our guests what they're currently listening to. For yourself, is there anything that's on high rotation at the moment?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I just mentioned that new Geese album. That's pretty incredible. I've been listening to Matt Corby's new song, Long and Short. I've been loving that. It feels like classic Corby. And then some of my older stuff, I've been listening to so much of The Blue Nile, like Hats. Like that album has been kind of taking me, by storm.
Yeah, very kind of eclectic mix, like obviously some within the same sonic worlds, but very different from one another. So I kind of absolutely love that. Yeah. Ruel, thank you very much for coming onto the podcast and chatting to us about this brand new record from yourself. It's called Kicking My Feet. It is out this week when people are listening to our conversation, but I very much appreciate your time today, mate.
Thanks so much, I appreciate it.